become Democrats effectively. They start supporting everything the Democrats do. Now you have people like Kinzinger and Liz Cheney who want the war on terror to focus on the deviant right-wing Americans.
Yes, that's right.
What they want is the neoconservative right to be the right in this country and the neolib to be the left in this country. Bernie Sanders was weak and they easily shut him down.
But
Donald
as you
Trump
could also
wasn't,
say,
and they couldn't, so
listen,
they're turning the war on terror against him and his followers.
You're right, and I think you're really on to something there. And as you could see, if you remember, when Bernie Sanders looked like he might beat Joe Biden, if you remember before Super Tuesday when they all circled the wagons and got him out, what did you hear from the corporate press? They're like the brown shirts. They're basically Nazis. Now, imagine if they had actually won and gotten their candidate in there, you would see a lot of this energy turned on them. What the right-wingers are being punished for right now is that they committed blasphemy. You were told to vote for Jeb Bush. We told you we were giving you another Bush.
Is that what they really wanted?
And you decided to go for this Trump guy who we told you was unacceptable. And so now you have to be smacked as Nazis. And they were starting to do the same thing, but the Democrats kind of fell in line, and also Bernie Sanders fell in line. So their leader basically fell in line.
They were saying the Bernie bros are violent.
Yes.
It's dangerous. Bernie,
sexist.
Remember when Bernie came out and was like, stop doing these things? Like he had to tell his followers to stop being violent.
Which was all bullshit. Which was all...
So
this
close.
guy. Welcome to YouTube.
So you think we would have avoided a lot of this extreme polarization if it had been Obama, Jeb Bush, and then like a nice back and forth?
No, my point is that we have this extreme polarization because of Bush and Obama and all of them. But now the establishment is freaking out because they've lost control of this thing. I think that Trump, the standard line is that like Trump destroyed the Republican Party. But I think that's nonsense. I think that George W. Bush destroyed the Republican Party, and Trump was the aftermath.
And now they love his paintings.
Well, that's right. They do, but because they always loved him. They never had a problem with him. Look, they
hated him. Everyone hated him.
They turned on him when it was convenient. They sold his wars. The New York Times was not being woke leftist. Judith Miller and all of these hacks were selling every one of his lies, which were ridiculous. Okay, the idea that Saddam Hussein and Iran and North Korea were all doing 9/11 together or whatever it was. They sold these wars, got us into them. Then when they saw the disastrous ramifications of the wars, they went, yeah, he's real bad. This is no good. Then they pushed behind Obama. But this was all.
And what did Obama do?
Expanded every last one of them.
And what did Joe Biden do once he was put in charge of Iraq? Little old brother got control of the construction contracts, made millions of dollars. Just coincidence, mind you. And then, for just totally unrelated reasons, his son got on the board of a Ukrainian energy firm during, the height of this conflict with natural gas and Gazprom. It's just totally coincidental.
And Obama not only continued the Bush foreign policy, he expanded it to a level that Bush and Cheney probably couldn't have gotten away with. I mean, Obama inherited the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and continued them for every single day of his presidency. But not only that, he expanded the war into Libya, Syria, Yemen, Somalia. I mean, he just took the wars all over the place.
The war on whistleblowers.
Well, yes.
More
and then
whistleblowers prosecuted than all other presidents combined.
Yeah, it might as
under
well.
the Espionage
It might as well have been another 8 years of George W. Bush.
It was worse.
Maybe even worse. I mean,
because
debatably.
And the press was behind him all the way. I mean, the activists hated George W. Bush, but like you mentioned, the New York Times sold it.
But I think that there was something that they noticed with Obama, and I think this is where the corporate woke takeover really started, is that Obama, one of the most effective things from the establishment point of view and one of the most awful things from any sane person's point of view that Obama did was Obama really destroyed the anti-war left. There was a really strong anti-war left under George W. Bush that is easy to forget about now.
Were wild.
I mean, you're talking
violent.
hundreds of thousands of people in the streets, like on the level of like the Women's March or something like that. Was that was the type of energy, and it wasn't just focused at some stupid thing. It was really focused at like we were lied into war, repeal the Patriot Act, things that really matter. The Patriot Act ultimately was part of what brought Donald Trump, to his knees in his presidency, again, ironically. But so they were focused on that. But what happened when Obama came in? It all went away. And I really think that a big part of this was that the liberal and left, I'm talking like the whole left half of the country, like liberals and left, all, so much of their identity was about not being racist. And in the best sense of that term, like not like this woke craziness of today, but the fact that we go, look, man, black people were treated horribly from the beginning of this country, and we're against racism and Jim Crow and racism, all this stuff. And when you had the first black president, who was also this charismatic guy who they wanted to love, to be against him was just very hard for a lot of liberals and left-wing people to do. So it just kind of silenced them.
Hey, Bill. Yeah. Remember when we put on that event called Ending Violence, Racism, and Authoritarianism, headlined by Daryl Davis? One of the most famous men de-radicalized
I do remember that.
And Antifa threatened to burn the theater down if we had those conversations.
Well, yeah, there you go.
You can't allow that.
But what happened, right, was that after that and then into the Occupy movement, and what my theory on it more or less is that a lot of very powerful interests started noticing that there was this kind of woke impulse. And of course, all the theory was in the background. There was critical race theory and all this stuff in the background. And they started noticing that this could really tear apart the unity on the left. And then on the heels of Occupy Wall Street, when, as you've noticed, it started tearing it apart on its own, organically. Like the woke stuff started taking over, and people were like, oh, you're not even focusing on the 99% anymore. Now you're focusing on like what divides us. And then all of a sudden you see, I mean, if you looked at any of those Nexus charts, New York Times, mentions of racism, Washington Post, mentions of racism, mentions of, toxic masculinity, patriarchy. They flooded the game with all of this. And all of the sudden, over the last 10 years, you have this culture where every single giant corporation, every politician, every major media outlet, every movie in Hollywood, everything has been flooded with an obsession over race and gender and all of this stuff. And to me, I think it's look at you see the CIA commercial the other day.
Yeah,
I mean, is this not our torturers are going to be talking about how inclusive they are? Come on.
Wait,
you got to see the game here. But let me just say, the game is to distract from the issues that really matter, which is power, violence, authoritarianism, and to get everybody pitted against each other in this culture war. And we have to tip our hat to them because they have done an incredibly successful job. They've done a good job at it.
Can we get like a Ryan Long style skit where it's like Guantanamo Bay inmates in jumpsuits being like, for the longest time, the torturers that were coming to waterboarding
that's a really good idea.
They were white guys. They were white guys. And
I love Ryan, by the way. He's great.
And then it's playing the good music. And then you have a guy be like, we feel like we're finally a part of history. We're so excited. And then a black woman comes in and she's carrying like the rag and the bucket and like putting the gloves on. And the guy's like bending over and he's like, it just feels good to be part of history.
It's just better now.
It's just so much better.
But that's what it is, right?
Torturers.
I mean, but it's if you think about it, it's a great deal. I mean, if you're like, JP Morgan Chase or Bank of America, and they're, basically your deal is, think about it, right? You have like 50,000 angry kids outside chanting, "We are the 99%" to these bankers. And the deal you've been able to make the left ultimately is, how about we send all of our white execs to diversity training? And they may not say this, but they're basically like, deal. We will go focus on all this other stuff. And they didn't have to do anything else.
Think about that phrase. Think about, we are the 99%. They were literally saying 99% of this country, which is all the white people, all the black people, all the Asian people. Now they're literally saying, yeah, but not the majority. Like, it is split the country
and
up.
And they didn't even mean 99%. It's even more than that, because what they really meant was 99.9%. Yep. What they really meant was the people who own banks and hedge funds versus all the rest of us.
I mean, no, hold on. At the time, they were talking about Mark Zuckerberg. This is the funniest thing, I'll tell you. One of my favorite days, most memorable at Occupy Wall Street was they were being censored and suppressed. And they were like, the media won't cover this, so we have to print our own physical newspapers. We have to use these other social networks. We have to use live streaming to get our message out. And they use Twitter and they use Facebook. But it was funny because they were complaining about the top 1%, and they literally put up a shrine to Steve Jobs when he died.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, he was not a good person.
But the point is that, but this was the thing about Occupy Wall Street, right? They didn't have all of the answers. And there were these like hypocrisies and silly things like that. But in essence, they were right. Like the banks had just gotten bailed out. And it was during the worst, recession since the Great Depression. You're going to bail out these guys. And then they kept their bonuses. I mean, it was so blatantly corrupt. And for them to call that out was right. And they were focused at least one of the power sources, like the big banks. They were really focused at something that actually mattered. And at the same time, or at least around the same time, you had the Tea Party movement that was going on, where these right-wingers were coming at it in the streets. And the right-wingers were saying, the government is way too big. It spends way too much money. It's too corrupt. We're taxed too much. We borrow too much. The debt's out of control. There's a problem. And the left-wingers are over here saying, bailing out the banks is immoral. They're getting all of these profits and none of the... And it was almost like, I've said this before on my podcast, it was almost like they were holding two sides of the same pendant necklace, and it was only a matter of time for the left and right to come together and be like, these ideas don't contradict each other at all.
Then,
they actually go right in line with each other.
However,
and now it got all broken up.
Occupy very quickly went woke. It was only a matter of like a week or two when the facilitators, they call themselves, come in and started saying, white people aren't allowed to speak. And it drove, that there were libertarians and conservatives there at Wall Street.
I know.
I remember in the first week, there was like a 60-year-old couple with an American flag sitting there complaining about all the same things. The bank got bailed out, we're being corrupted, and everyone was in agreement. I mean, I met Luke down at Occupy
It was
Wall Street.
Occupy the Fed. There was Occupy the Fed
Right.
was going
Yep.
along. That was alongside Occupy
And
the Wall Street. Those were all the libertarians who supported
Because
similar
this was
ideas.
the Ron Paul days.
Yeah.
So the libertarians were trying to come in there and try to
They were-
teach.
no, hold on.
They were trying to teach them a little bit,
they're-
hey, if you hate
hold
the
on,
banks,
hold on.
there's this one
Yeah,
bank
yeah.
that runs all
They
the
weren't
banks.
trying to do anything. They were there. I was there
were
in the
marching.
first week. They were there. Luke Rudkowski was there. Ron Paul guy. I met him there. We talked about these things. Great conversation between libertarians, conservatives, and liberals. And then very quickly, the ultra woke came in, took over the meetings, and said white people weren't allowed to talk anymore. And I remember this one white dude I knew who was an anarchist started crying and left. And so these people started leaving, and it was stripping away the core of the movement. Now, many of these Occupy people who followed me or friended me at the time are championing the FBI's raid on Giuliani and Facebook and Twitter, massive multinational corporations, suppressing dissent. They've never had principles. They were going along with the tide, and they were manipulated. Now, let's go to Super Chats. See what the audience has to say. Yes. So if you haven't already, smash that like button and go to timcast.com to become a member and get access to exclusive segments from the Timcast IRL show. If you go to timcast.com, you'll see in the top right corner, we actually have a Stripe option now. Stripe is amazing. I hear I really like Stripe. I know a lot of people didn't like PayPal, so there you go. But anyway, smash that like button, subscribe, share the show if you really like it. Let's read some of these super chats. Michael Brogan says, Friday nights, baby. Always the best guests. Cheers, Dave. Cheers, Timcast IRL team. We are having a crew come out, hopefully next week, to help us clean out the garage skate park. So if you've seen the vlog, we've got, or you've seen my Instagram post, we have this big skate park / venue. We call it the Grind Bar. And we have some work that has to be done with clearing out this like really awful, gross insulation because we still have a lot of work to do. And after that, we're trying to get go as fast as we can. Friday night live events where we wouldn't just be having this show. We'd actually swap over and have music and comedy. And members are actually going to be able to buy tickets to come out. And we'll do this hopefully every single week. We got to get things cleaned up. Then once we do, we can get the computers installed, the cameras installed, and then we got to do a major upgrade on this studio. So it takes time, unfortunately, but that's the plan, man. All right. Christian Jimgochian says, when I was 17 and a dumb high schooler, I wanted to be a cop. 7 years later, I'm glad I didn't do it. Also, here's $27 for the $2,700 you donated to the cat's surgery. Good guy Tim over here, keeping his promises. Y'all rock. Yeah, so yesterday, someone super chatted their cat needed surgery. And I said, by the end of the show, this will be done. And a lot of people did donate. Still a large amount was left over, so I donated. I actually wanted to start a nonprofit a while ago. We talked about it, where we basically pay for animal surgeries. Because I know a lot of people who have had like a cat or a dog, it's like $2,000 to like save the animal's life. And they're like, I just don't have that money. So like, what are you going to do? Let your pet die? I'm like, maybe we can set something up. I don't know. Yeah. All right, let's see where we're at. C. Hennessy says, Tim, you should get Louis Rossman from YouTube on. He's an NYC business owner who can't plead guilty or ask for court date for a fine that was given on BS unclear law. Could pay more in fines if he can't get in contact. right to repair. Yeah, I saw this. Apparently the website didn't work. So he couldn't actually do anything. Then they call him like, you're in trouble. And he's like, I can't even go on the website. The website doesn't work. Like, what am I supposed to do? And there's no in-person because of COVID. So it's just like New York's imploding. Logan Brown says, how are you enjoying rural living? You know, I guess it is rural. I suppose it could be more rural, but it's the best.
Sub-rural.
I walk outside onto my deck and I just like fire an arrow from my compound bow and just like hit a target. And I can just like do that every morning whenever I want. It's fantastic.
It smells so good outside.
Yeah, you go outside, fresh air. We have, here's the crazy thing. Y'all city folk drinking that nasty fluoride water, aren't you? Not us. We got our own water source.
Yes, fresh well water.
And we got a really great system. We have like one of the highest quality, home systems. It's got the UV light and everything. None of that gross fluoride water with, copper and
rusted
iron.
pipes.
Yeah, rusted pipes.
Yeah.
Carter Felder says, have you read Spiral Dynamics by Don Beck and Christopher Cohen? I haven't. Have any of you?
No. Sounds fascinating, though. The spiral, man.
EVBB Jones says, this super chat was paid for by unemployment benefits. I could go back to work, but the entire state government is telling me not to. They're literally paying me not to. Give them what they paid for.
Yeah. What if we supplanted unemployment with UBI so that you could still work? You just still got the money, but then you you don't lose it if you go to work.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, but unemployment doesn't work either. It would just be a less faulty system.
I just feel like if you're asking, look, like I was saying before, the government is just giving you taxpayer money. If you want to ask for help from the people who do work and are paying taxes, how about this radical idea? Ask for the help. And if they want to give you the help, they can. And if people in your community go, oh, there's this guy who's trying to work, but he's out of work, we can pull some money together and help him. But why do you get to, through government, force somebody who has to produce something and has to go to work to just give you money for doing nothing?
That's a cooperation versus competition argument. But to Ian's point about why can't you supplement UBI? Let's say somebody is a base, they make screws. You need screws so that you can build wood objects. And the company that makes screws pays $15 an hour. So they start saying to everybody, we're looking to hire people. We pay $15 an hour and you'll probably end up making, $2,000 per month. The guy goes, I get $1,000 a month doing nothing. So why should I do work and only get a little bit more? And they say, well, we're supplementing your income. So you'll get an extra, you'll have $3,000 per month. And they're like, but I can live off of $1,000 and do nothing.
And I can do stuff in my free time and make money under the table.
Yes. And then the business says, okay, well then how much do we have to pay you to make you want to work here on top of the $1,000 you already get? And they're like, I don't know. Okay, can we give you $3,000 a month? They go, all right, then I'll have $4,000. All right, I'll take the job. What's happening is now the company has to raise the cost of all of the screws. Then the contractor comes in and says, we got to build a house. Yeah. Man, screws just went up, 33%. Why? Because in order to incentivize people who don't need to work, you got to pay them a lot more than you would have to pay someone who doesn't have any money.
Because of competition, you, instead of having to offer him for $3,000, instead you just find someone else that wanted to do it for $2,000.
Well, it's like you said earlier, when the government it pays someone $16 an hour, any business that is offering you a job is saying, I'll give you $1 an hour for full-time work.
Yeah, that's busted.
So if someone's already getting $1,000, you're saying I'll give you an additional $7 an hour to work full time, and most people are going to be like, I'd rather just like sit on the beach.
Well, I don't have to do anything. One other like logistical problem that I see with the idea of UBI is that quite often proponents of it take for granted the idea that we've abolished all other forms of handouts, which anytime as a libertarian, anytime I say let's abolish the welfare state, it's like, oh, well, that's so impractical. But for some reason, when you're proposing UBI, you just get to take it as a given that we've abolished all these other forms of welfare. So if we have already done the work of abolishing all these other forms of welfare, then we've really changed the mentality in this country that people would be willing to accept that. Because what happens when somebody, okay, so you get $1,000 a month or something like that, we've abolished all other forms of welfare, single mom, not working with 3 kids. She blew her $1,000. Now she's destitute.
Well,
what about that? Aren't we right back at the exact same place where we were before? Going, what are we going to do to take care of
if
her?
If a mom was making $1,800 a month for whatever reason, and then you were going to supplant the $1,000, she'd only get $800 left. She wouldn't lose it all. But she would only supplant up to the basic income.
But then if that's the case, then we have all of the same incentive problems that we had with the welfare state to begin with.
Except you
that she's not getting anything.
You could reduce the initial. So like the first $1,000, you don't have, like you'd get rid of unemployment. And then Does it? Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, none of it works. That's the point. Is it's busted.
No.
So let's try and
plug
a hole here.
You can't. Calm down. You can't. It's like being like, why can't I just eat ice cream for the rest of my life? I understand there's a problem with sugar and fats, but let's find out how to eat ice cream. You can't do it.
If you're going to pay someone $1,000 a month, then why punish them for getting a job on top of that? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, okay. I understand the point there, and there certainly is an incentive problem with telling someone that they lose their money if they start getting a job. But to the flip side of that, now you're giving taxpayer money to people who don't need it. Now you're giving taxpayer money to people who, may not even be asking for it. I mean, I don't know. If we're going to talk about repealing the welfare state, let's just do what obviously makes sense, which is repeal it. Why are we giving these blood-soaked monsters in Washington, D.C. control of our tax dollars to try to do the right thing with? Look, over this last year, in America's greatest moment in need, like when we really were on our knees as a country, what did they do? They robbed the American people and bailed out all of the biggest corporations in the country. The banks got extended trillions in easy loans. Every big corporation that was politically connected got hundreds of billions of dollars. We got a crummy $1,200 going out. Why are we trusting this mechanism, which is, we all of us know, rotten to the core, filled with corrupt people? If either people are good enough to take care of those who are in need, or they're not. And if they're not, they're certainly not good enough to vote in blood-soaked monsters who are then going to take care of the people in need.
There's one possibility too, right? And it's that if the government gave everybody $1,000 a month from taxpayers, everyone, pays taxes, they likely would not be able to do that because I think it would exceed the GDP or it would just be a tremendous strain. So they'd probably print or borrow. But let's say everyone's still desperate for work because $1,000 a month doesn't cut it. Now you're going to see businesses being like, we only pay $5 an hour. Take it or leave it. You're already getting $1,000 from the government. You don't need anything from us. Sorry, that's it.
You could reduce minimum wage, yeah.
Well, or what would happen is hyperinflation from UBI would result in stagnant minimum wage. The left would then demand the minimum wage go up, and it would just be constant command economy. It just doesn't work. It makes little sense. It makes no sense. I say it when I say little, I get it. A child says, "Why don't we just give people money so they can have food? Because we have so much food." It's like, bro, because the economy doesn't work that way. What the dollar represents right now is a few things. Arguably, it represents the energy required for labor. So it could represent petroleum, the petrodollar. But in terms of labor in the United States, we have a very service sector-based economy. The dollar, the energy behind it is how much labor people are willing to exchange for labor. How much does a petroleum engineer, how much time do they want to work in order to have someone serve them a cheeseburger at a restaurant? They probably don't value that a whole lot. In fact, we can get kiosks to do it. So the issue is, when we talk about just raising minimum wages or giving people money, you will just increase the cost of the lowest level of labor that people don't respect as it is. Doctors are like, so there's this meme that goes around where it's a guy like, I'm an electrical engineer. And when I hear that fast food workers want to make the same amount as me, I say, congratulations, we all deserve a living wage. And it's the stupidest argument because an electrical engineer, who's probably not making all that much, relative, to other jobs, doesn't want to have to work for 5 hours to be able to buy a chicken dinner. These people are saying, I work hard, I've established myself in my career, I should be able to provide for my family, and by working harder, gain more to give my family a better life. That means after 10 years of training and being an apprentice, now I'm a journeyman, now I'm a master, I'm making more money. And somebody is going to spend the same amount of time in a fast food restaurant to earn the same thing they do. Now, the argument for the left is, but everyone deserves a living wage. The problem then is people will say, why work hard to become a specialist or master if we're only going to get access to the same things? Again, the left argument is that people will be fulfilled by taking these jobs. That's true for some people, but not true for everybody. And I always ask my lefty friends this: how many people do you know want to be famous musicians? And they're like, oh, a ton. How many of them are good enough to actually do it? None of them. And how many of them, if you gave them money, would quit their jobs and just play garbage music outside trying to be a rock star? Probably all of them.
Yeah,
So people have
and then on the flip side of that, right? Like there are these jobs like being a garbage man usually pays like fairly decently because no one really wants to do that. But the only way to entice people into it is to say like, well, look, you can make $80K a year.
And
or
in
something
10
like
years,
this, and
garbage trucks will be AI, and the primary, argument of the smartest people who propose UBI is AI.
Right.
That's what they're saying. That's why billionaires
That's the
support.
Hunger Games.
Well, okay,
that's the
but
Hunger Games.
because
But-
then you
but
have
it is
the
a
richest
false
people.
argument.
Then you have the richest people getting free resources from those who are still forced
That's
to
how
work.
it's been
It doesn't
anyway. Working
work.
hard doesn't make you rich in this world.
No,
That's
and
not
AI
true.
Working
produces
smart
jobs.
makes you rich.
But
in this
working
world.
hard
Yes.
shouldn't make you rich. I mean, I could go outside and lift a boulder over my head and drop it for 12 hours in a row, and I'm working really, really hard. I shouldn't get rich from that because I'm not providing any value
well,
to
hold on,
anyone
hold on,
else.
hold on. If it's attached to a gravity generator,
Well,
we're
okay,
talking.
then now we're talking. But I
got
would just say
scales.
Right.
in the argument, and I think this is actually the most flawed argument for UBI, which is one of the arguments that
I'm
you
not-
just brought up.
I'm not
no, I know
saying-
you're not
yeah,
making
yeah,
it.
yeah,
You're just saying that this is one of the arguments, which is basically that technological developments are going to take away all of the jobs that exist now, and so we have to replace them with something. The major flaw in that argument is that if you looked at what technological advancements have already taken away in terms of jobs, they're almost all gone. I mean, if you look at the jobs from 1890, what percentage of society was in agricultural work compared to now? It's probably 80% to 3% or something like that.
To be
But
fair,
no
hold
one.
on. To be fair, the city used to have poop departments to clean up horse poop.
Well, that's
San
right.
Francisco is bringing them back.
Always.
But that's exactly.
But the same
But the
people-
point is that if you're going to say that if somebody in the year 1890 was like, oh my God, these automobiles are coming in and this is going to put out the horse and buggy driver out of work, if you were to sit down and explain to them, like, and they said, well, what jobs are people going to do? And you were like, well, how about graphic design? And how about audio engineer? This would be impossible to explain to somebody, 130 years ago. But the point is that in the future, we won't know what the jobs are going to be, that this
hold on.
technology will create lots of new jobs.
The problem is you can't take a petroleum engineer who is 50, who still needs to work, and be like, go learn a code. They're going to be like, I can't learn to do that. Are you nuts? So that means my specialty, which becomes obsolete. So this is a hole in the system that
No,
needs
but there
solution.
still are peripheral jobs related to AI
building solar panels.
that don't require knowledge of
Well-
how to code.
Well,
I
look,
mean,
it's a hole in the system in a sense. I mean, it's like this is part of it's creative destruction, right? So if you owned a Kodak store when digital cameras came out, I'm not denying that really sucked for you. I mean, there are people who was like, oh, I make typewriters and that sucks that computers came out, but it also it doesn't destroy the economy.
Just
there
imagine.
were lots more jobs created by it.
I want you to imagine something. Everyone listening right now. The year is 1999, or maybe no, it's 2004. I don't know what year. And there is a young man. He's 23 and he's wearing a blue polo shirt, and he's got a single tear coming from his left eye. Is
he wearing a beanie? Is this the story of you?
As the regional manager for Blockbuster enters his store, puts his hand on his shoulder and says, "Son, it's over." And he's been working there for years. It's his passion. Everyone in the neighborhood knew him. He was smiling Jim. They'd come in and be like, "What's the movies today, Jim?" And he'd be like, "Oh, let me show you the new releases," with a smile on his face for years. This young man. And then one day they came in and said, "The dream has come to an end." And then all that's left now is this old decaying building with this weird ticket logo, and it's just a rotting decay. And Jim shows up now, and he's now in his 40s, and he looks there, and he stands across the street with a beer gut. His hair's thinning and gone. His kids are walking past him, and they're like, "Come on, Dad." And he goes, "Just a second." And he looks across the street at the old Blockbuster, and he raises his left hand, and then he just remembers.
If
where
that
it used
guy
to be.
could have pushed a button and stopped Netflix, he may have, which terrifies me because that indicates an incentive to stop or slow innovation. I think
Okay,
the
okay.
job
That's
economy.
why you don't want workers to have control over things like this. This is what you
the
just mentioned
Luddites.
is the great flaw in democratic socialism. Is that
Let
if
me-
you have workers having control over innovation, they're going to vote against it.
Okay. So let's go back. Okay, so he's raising his left hand, looking across at the Blockbuster, and then he scowls. He's angry. We're going home, kids. And then he works tirelessly in his basement, welding, and his kids are like, Dad, what are you doing? Not now! And his wife is like, it's been weeks. He's not showering. What's happening? And then finally, in his basement, he goes, I've done it. And he hits a giant red button and opens up a time vortex. And he goes back in time, and he finds the founder of Netflix, and he's shaking and holding the gun. And he's like, you took everything from me. And the Netflix guy goes, I don't even know you. And that's the story of how the alternate timeline where Blockbuster never went out of business.
I would watch that movie if it was sold at Blockbuster, but only there. But just the point, the goal isn't just jobs. You know what I mean? Like, the goal is prosperity. The goal is more productivity and a higher productive capacity. I mean, if we were, this is an old like Frederick Bastiat example. I forget exactly how it goes, but if the sun is putting the candle makers out of it, like, you know, the candle makers could sell a lot more if we didn't have this sun the whole time. But if you could just imagine, right, let's say oxygen, which is something we all need to live, but we don't think about, and it's not scarce, so we just have it. Imagine we all had to work 5 hours a day for oxygen. Like, there, some type of physical work had to be done so that there was enough for us to breathe. Well, we would have way more jobs, but we would also be way poorer because we'd be working for something that we already have for free now. So the goal is to produce more and more with less and less.
Yeah, the
let me read this super chat
Federal
here.
Reserve concept.
Right.
Yes.
We got a super chat from Rad number 2. He says, I work a union gig and we are desperate for help. Starting at $100K per year with benefits, and people would rather sit on their butts and get free money. Also, Dave Smith for president. Hey, there you go.
Thinking about it.
I'm into it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, aren't you running or something? Is it?
I said I'm thinking about running on the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, because
for
they need
2024.
a real.
Oh yeah.
Well, listen, you brought it up. I think last time I was here, and I know you brought it up before, and you're right too. That meme of libertarian ideas versus libertarian candidates. But the truth is, there's no reason for it to be like that. And there have been great libertarian candidates before. Ron Paul was that guy. Harry Brown was that guy. And there's just a lot of the candidates don't really know how to talk about liberty.
Right.
And if no one else will do it good, then I'll do it.
All right. So John Mobb says, Tim, you can't quit and be approved for unemployment. There's an investigation process that does take place, and you need to be fired or laid off to get approved. So don't quit, people. You will be denied. That is false. John, you are incorrect. You need a reason. So you can work at a job and quit and still get unemployment so long as you quit for a valid reason. Namely, you were being harassed. Your boss, did something inappropriate. You can say, I felt threatened at work and I didn't know how to deal with it because I felt like there was going to be retaliation. And they might deny you. They might be like, that's not a good enough reason. But you can quit. You just need a real reason. And that's the thing. A lot of people do. They'll file a complaint at work and be like, this person's making me feel unsafe. Then a week later, they'll come back and say, I still feel unsafe. There's no way to resolve someone saying something like, I feel unsafe, and this person's doing it. And then when the business can't do anything about your fake problem, you quit and you say, yeah, I quit because they were threatening me and they couldn't do anything about it. And they'll be like, okay. Also, if you are fired for cause, you also might not be able to get unemployment. So like if you do something inappropriate and it's documented and try and then get fired and then say, I want unemployment, they might be like, yeah, well, like you were streaking through the halls of the business. You don't get unemployment. It's just about whether it's your fault or not. So you can quit. Dakota Smith says, just bought the To the Moon shirt. Longtime viewer. Keep up the struggle. Appreciate it. That's right. If you go to timcast.com, click the store. We have this amazing new Doge shirt. It's a Shiba holding cash, and it says To the Moon, and there's coins everywhere. And that one's probably going to be up for a while. I love that one. It's great. All right. Let's see. Let's get some new super chats. Uh-oh. Slensder. Dave, Malice may be your press secretary, but Tim Pool is chief of staff all day. Ian can tag along, and Liz is communications director to keep Malice on a leash. I don't know about chief of staff. I don't know what that sounds like something I would do.
I feel like we could find a more creative job for you. Chief of staff sounds boring. I think you want something. You're a fun guy.
Head up intelligence or something.
Yeah. Like director of national intelligence.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd just be
You couldn't be worse than the previous ones.
I'd be much too libertarian. I'd be like.
That's what we're looking for here.
I just be releasing the documents, like so, like the head of the CIA would walk in and be like, "All right, we got some very serious intel." And they hand me the report. Yeah, that's interesting. It's like let me tweet this real quick. And what are you doing? I'm just tweeting out this to the public so they can see what's going on.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm gonna get so many likes on this. You're like, I really
the public has a right to know. It's like, yeah, no, I don't know, man. I understand there's a real need for like confidentiality, classified stuff, and like war and conflict. So that's why I don't want to go anywhere near that stuff. All right. Ian Mitchell says, with Ethereum having moved away from proof of work, miners and those interested in mining should look into Vertcoin. The new Verthash algorithm is ASIC resistant and very GPU friendly. Vertcoin's one-click miner makes it a great intro to mining. Everybody's got a new coin. Mark Jensen says the ATF just posted a proposed rule change redefining what a firearm is. Would make millions of gun owners felons overnight. Wow. Oh, there you go. Chris DeBon says, Ian, took your advice last AM, took your advice. I'm starting a new political party, the Southern Secessionist Syndicate Party. Check us out. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, something about Southern Secessionists just has a little bit of a bad
connotation. I don't remember advising that ever.
I mean, I'm all for it, but it's just there's no has this historical context.
As a peaceful divorce, keep that in mind. The federal government will blockade any port it has to.
Well, I don't know. Look at the Soviet Union. They broke up.
Right,
but it was because they invaded Afghanistan and destroyed their economy.
That was before they broke up.
Yeah. All right,
and then they broke up.
Too bad. I like that band.
Wraith Customs Firearms says the financial advice thing started because someone owning stock A would say, buy stock A, get others to buy it to spike value, then dump it. Get rich while others get screwed. Love the show. Shout out to my small business, WraithCustomsFirearms.com. Hey, thanks for the super chat. Paul Meixner says, Tim, I'd like to invite you and the crew to the IVE Quadruple 8 Range Day. Shoot exotics, full autos for free. Meet the majority of gun YouTube channels. Prez of GOA, FPC, Industry Peeps. Wanted to invite you 3 years ago, but was on Nolan's Tenet. Canceled last year. I'll email you at midnight. Is it near where we're at? Because that sounds great. Could we film it? That'd be fun. Some belt-fed full auto or something. Doctor says UBI as a concept is probably more 25 years out unless we have quick advancement in automation and robotics, and it's cost effective versus human labor. As a former ATC in the Army, I watched more and more automation, even in my field, plus advanced drones. Look into TAIS. I've been talking about this stuff for decades. I was like a teenager. I was like 16. And I felt there's a serious problem that you could dedicate your life to your country, to your community, working hard to be the master at a certain job. And when it becomes obsolete, we just kick you out. It's like, sorry, you can't have access to goods now because through no fault of your own, technology advanced, which creates a problem. However, Luddites aren't good either, just saying like the horse and buggy industry is being destroyed by big auto. So it's a challenge. Unfortunately, the problem with UBI is that some people would not work while others work extremely hard. And what do you think is going to happen when rural farmers are busting their asses and people in the city are doing nothing? Yeah. Eventually going to be like, I am done being your servant and working hard so that you get free stuff.
Well, like I was saying before, I would just say that the concept of UBI in essence already exists. Like the idea that, well, we have this starting point that no one falls behind. I mean, like
it's a rebrand,
right? Like talk to someone in Central Africa, compare our life to that. We have that. We live with that already. So the only question that's important is what is going to lift this whole tide up more and more. And so I think that honestly, like, yeah, you could look at the guy who loses his job because technology changes, but what about the 50 guys who gained a job when the technology changed? The question is, what makes us richer and richer and richer? And I don't think that that's government handouts.
I think it was Darwin said it's not the smartest of the species that survives, but the one that's the most adaptable to change.
Right.
And you can see that in automation.
Yep.
And people are figuring out how to be more independently creative and generate financial freedom on their own. Yeah. I mean, that's what you got to do.
More than ever.
This is a good one. Vash Specter says, massive gas shortage is due to lack of truck drivers to deliver fuel. Market is down 300,000 drivers and high 90% turnover. I drive 70 hours a week. I would do more if the government would let us. Wow. Yeah.
There you go.
$12.50 a week if you join.
Wow.
So I'm glad I got an electric car. I bought a Tesla. Because I'm like, I don't want to sit around and wait for the next gas shortage. Like, I wasn't around for it in the 80s. I guess it was a gas shortage. People remember it, I guess. I remember hearing stories about people waiting in line. It was like odds and even license plate numbers to try and get gas on certain days.
I saw one in New York during Hurricane Sandy. Were you guys there?
Oh, yeah, dude. That was crazy.
Man, that was a couple days.
People waiting all day to fill their tank one time.
Hurricane Sandy was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life, being in Midtown Manhattan, and it's like country black. You know, like you can't see your hand in front of your face, and we're walking around with flashlights and stuff. Did a stand-up show by candlelight.
Ooh.
It was wacky.
Nice.
Tyler Adams says, hey, Tim, one person that I'd love to be on the show would be Charles Hoskinson of the Cardano Foundation. He's got his own YouTube channel. He's politically intellectual and the creator of Cardano, co-creator of Ethereum. His location is in Colorado and worth the interview. Interesting.
Don't you know how?
Full disclosure, I do have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. We talked about this the other day. I also have Dogecoin.
It's at 69 cents now, 0.69, whatever it is.
Yeah, but what is everyone just going to sell once it gets to $1 or something?
After Saturday when Elon
Yep.
talks about it,
Elon
there's going to be a
tweeted about
huge
it.
dump.
The Doge
That's why everyone's
fathers
buying right
is
now.
coming.
But
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
He actually, there's a video of him I saw yesterday where he was like, Doge is a joke. Invest responsibly,
carefully,
and I
yeah.
would never
Good.
tell anyone
I
to
haven't
invest
seen
their,
that.
their
Yeah.
fortune in this.
Kuro Terran says, regarding a video you posted earlier in the day, I'm from Wisconsin. We have castle doctrine here. So the arrest of the man for conducting a show of force when rioters threatened him was a wrongful arrest. Dare I say illegal? No. But does that mean the police broke the law and arrested a homeowner who was being threatened by a raucous crowd?
Doesn't sound right.
That doesn't sound like something the police would do. They wouldn't arrest the law-abiding citizen in his own home who was defending himself from a group of people who had previously been at a house that was set on fire. Oh, that'd be so strange. Weird. It's almost as if the police are taking the side of the rioters because, like I said last year, the police will show up, see a group of rioters and a homeowner and be like, it's easier to arrest one person in their home than it is to deal with 60 violent people.
And that they're susceptible to political pressure, and that when it comes to it, like, there are a lot of cops, right? A lot of cops are not sympathetic to these left-wing rioters. That's not what police are. But they know their higher-ups are going to get them in trouble. They might be on the news. They might be on this. And so they just go with what's easier. And there's no reason to suspect. I mean, just look at the 20th century. Do you think that the enforcement arm of the state is not willing to just kind of do what is expedient, even at the violation of human rights? I mean, we're not different creatures than the Russians or the Germans or any of them. It's the same structure. It's a state and an armed agent of the state enforcing the rules.
Bear in Mind says, I got laid off and was making $950 a week from unemployment. And my dad, who didn't get laid off, was only making $800 for 60 hours. He wasn't happy.
Wow.
That's why UBI doesn't work. Because the people who still have to work, because humans are still needed for labor, are going to revolt against those in the capital who aren't working but are getting access to their resources. Imagine if every day, actually this is true. Imagine if every day you built a birdhouse and the government came and just took half your birdhouses away and gave it to people who weren't working. Hey, that's kind of happening today, isn't it?
That's already
No,
happening.
it'd be like if you were building a birdhouse and they came and gave you birdhouse parts that you didn't need as they were giving everyone else birdhouse parts.
No, but see,
What?
the flaw in that logic is thinking that there is this unlimited supply of birdhouse parts. They have to be made. So the idea is, like, if somebody's working their tail off and making $2,000 a week for it, and then somebody else does nothing and gets $1,000 a week for it, that is going to build resentment from the people who are producing the wealth.
It's this simple,
I mean-
bro. Imagine you pay rent to live in a house and some dude's sleeping on your couch and he doesn't work and he's eating all your food.
You better be paying me half of his UBI.
He's not paying you
Oh.
anything.
He better be if he's living in my house.
This is what UBI is. It's putting a layabout on your couch who isn't working but is getting a portion of your stuff. If you are working every day to make something of value for society and there is someone who is not doing anything, that money has to come from somewhere. And if they can't take it from you because you'll freak out, they will print money, devaluing your money and your resources, giving it to this person, and then shows up and says, "Hey, Ian, I'll give you $100 of." Imagine this: you're like, "You better give me half your UBI if you're living in my house," and he laughs and goes, "It's your money anyway. I don't care. The money came from your labor. Sure, you can have half of it. I'll take your stuff. You're still losing your stuff to a layabout."
No, in that situation, I'd be making more than I was losing in that situation. I think the problem is that they're printing money. The Federal Reserve can just endlessly print money.
Right.
That
Where
is
do you
a
think
big-
they're going to
that
get the
is a
money
big
for
problem.
UBI for?
From printing endless money from the Federal Well, they want to tax corporations.
AOC said we should be deficit spending.
I think Andrew Yang said that we need to tax corporations for, what were they?
VATs.
Value-added tax.
Because
I just don't understand how we can even talk about taxing corporations. Just stop giving them taxpayer money. Can we work on that first? Once
Right.
we achieve that, then maybe I'll entertain the conversation about whether we're going to then take
The
their
VAT
money back
But
and
hold-
give
hold
it.
on.
You know, it's like if you're talking about giving someone a blood transfusion, but you're actively draining blood from them. Like, okay, could you stop doing that
used to
first?
do that
And then we
to get
could.
rid of the bad
Yeah,
blood.
I know, but that's what we're doing right now. We're taxing working people and giving that money to corporations, and then having these abstract conversations about whether the corporations are paying their fair share. How about they just have to survive or fail on their own, at least as
Oh,
a
I'm so
starting
with that.
point?
Dude, we're paying $20 trillion back to Fannie and Freddie Mac. over 20 years or something. $20 trillion.
All right, Madison McAfee says, I was wrongfully arrested to an FTA for a court case I went to for a noise violation and even got the charge dropped, but they didn't file it. 36 hours in DeKalb County Jail. Minus $1,000 was told I couldn't sue because they'd claim negligence. That's justice system.
Wow.
Yep. That's right. Aiden B. Dunyan says, hey, Tim, love the show and the guests you have. Here in Oklahoma, they banned critical theory, and now the Dems are trying to argue that banning it violates their First Amendment rights. Let me just make something clear. The First Amendment doesn't protect the state's right to speak. It protects the people's right to speak, and it protects their right to speak from the government, from the state. So I think it's funny that these schools are like, this is a free speech issue. We don't have to force the state to say anything. We can tell the state they're not allowed to speak.
Yeah.
The people can speak.
Well, that's like, I mean, saying like if you banned a public school from teaching that, you
Prayer.
know, 2 + 2 = 5 or prayer, it's like whatever you want to call it. I mean, like, no, you have every, you know, it's reasonable to set standards.
Isn't it funny how they're like, they want to restrict prayer in schools, and now they're acting like we should be able to restrict the things, like we couldn't restrict speech in schools. Like, prayer is protected under the First Amendment.
But by the way,
Hypocrites.
critical race theory is just their prayer.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's their religion.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yep. A. Skidlov says, learned about Dave through comedy, and now I'd vote for him for president.
Woo.
Smith Gabbard 2024 with Malice as press secretary. Let's go.
Alex Jones wants to get involved too.
Can I? Is there an amount of money I have to earn and spend to make Michael Malice the press secretary?
No, this is
We need like $1
we
billion
worked this out
now.
already. He said he will do it for 1 Bitcoin a month.
No. I don't mean to pay a salary. I mean, how do we actually get an administration to win that results in a Malice press secretary?
That's going to cost more than a Bitcoin a month.
$1
probably.
billion,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's going to be tough.
More, because you're fighting the establishment, so you would need like 10 billion.
But it's only what 10 billion could buy you, which is airtime
Listen,
like this.
what it's going to start as is Michael Malice just being the communication director of a campaign, which will be fun enough on its
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
Just him just wrecking everybody.
You have to run for the Libertarian Party, because then you would actually be getting press coverage, and Michael Malice would be the communications director.
Well, this is the plan. This is the plan, sir. But then
Well,
you
you
told me
haven't
I
officially-
have to.
You're
and
not
now,
officially running or anything,
as a
right?
libertarian,
Don't
I
tread on
can't do
snack.
it now.
That's right.
You
No,
must.
I am seriously considering it, and I'll tell you, if I do it, it's going to be an epic campaign.
Yes.
It's going to be something that there won't have been a libertarian run like this since Ron Paul, because I will utilize everyone. Michael Malice, like you, like everybody who's good at what they do will be doing it. And it's not about, like, my thing isn't like, oh, I want to achieve political power and then use it for this or that. The whole point is to just really spread a message. And like you always say, like, the libertarian message is great. And that's what I think needs to be out there, and to call out all these power brokers for their hypocrisy.
There's contradictory libertarian messages. You know what I mean? There are pro-borders and anti-borders libertarians, because people disagree on the extent of what libertarian really means, I guess.
Well, okay, sure. There are people who disagree on that. But the major problem, even with the border crisis, is all government created. I mean, the whole thing is like, okay, so we have a war on drugs. So then there's these people smuggling all these drugs in. Then we have a welfare state that incentivizes all of these people in there. We subsidize that. Then we subsidize the war against immigrants. Then we have easy birthright citizenship, which subsidizes people coming in. The whole thing is a government mess to begin with. So I'm with you. I wouldn't suggest right now, under current conditions, we just have open borders. But I would recognize that the whole thing is a government mess to begin with.
Yep.
And the
It's because
problem is always the government. The problem is always the rulers.
It's kind of like every time they plug a hole, another hole bursts out.
Yeah.
And they keep trying to just, maybe you should just be like, nah, you need to, let things.
Yeah, we need a new system. Like a decentralized social network system that is government backed.
Yes.
We can build floating islands with
Automatic.
fusion power. I mean, the tech is there.
Well, look,
Ian's right. We need a decentralized, more like automatic system of border security. I'm thinking like auto defense turret,
Yeah,
50
turrets.
BMG, full auto. I'm kidding.
Small drones.
well, I was saying the last time I was on this show, I really believe this, that decentralization, some type of scaling back of the power of the federal government, is like, just in a medical sense, the only thing that could save this country. because we are on a suicide mission right now. And the culture war and all of this is related to it. It's everyone jockeying for position for who controls the federal government. This is why it spikes every 4 years when it's your president or my president's going to win. The debt is out of control. The money printing is out of control. This thing is we're obviously going off the cliff. And the only answer here is to scale that. Well, that's a pretty solid start. But scale this thing back, more local control, more community control, less federal control. And that's the only thing that can save this
you can
country.
build voting apps where people can choose where their tax dollars go and things.
All right, we got a super chat from Dr. Doctor. He says, what I'm saying, I think it means seeing, what I'm saying is, as an air traffic controller with which is a highly complex, situationally aware job, it was becoming more and more automated. If that kind of work is becoming automated, even coding is getting closer to being more automated and needing less coders. Well, coding language, like, could you imagine what's the standard code people use, like basic or binary, I suppose? Could you imagine like hard coding something in just binary? No, that we make coding languages that basically simplify the process and become easier and easier.
C#. Have you seen, in your experience with Minds, any advancements in AI writing the code?
Oh, there was a new AI like programming language that could generate programs automatically that MIT just put out. But yeah, I mean, that's happening. Code that creates code. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just you're making more advanced code. So it simplifies to where look at website development. When I started making websites, I was doing actual HTML and things like that, right? Way back in the day. And I started animating in Flash and I was like, oh, this is great. Now we're at a point where it's like you drag and drop things. You know, it's like element, and then boop, you just drag and drop.
My favorite thing is when like some of these geniuses will come out and they're like, okay, this AI thing is really dangerous. But then they just go back to working on the AI after that. Like, it's like, we can't even control it. We're like, yeah, all right, this might be a problem, but I'm going to keep doing it.
Ethical question about AI. If you make the software code free for the AI, so you know what it's doing, you can watch its software progress. Can you make it so it doesn't make itself proprietary, or is AI just in general can just disregard its own license?
AI is not so self-knowledgeable that it can dictate its own accessibility to humans. I think that people think that AI is a lot more. There are risks, but it's not like this alien force of higher intelligence that's like attacking us right now. I mean, we have the capability to control it.
There you go.
Yeah, people think AI is going to be like Skynet and the Terminators. They think it's going to be like Ultron. In order to end all war, humans must be wiped out. In actuality, what's going to happen is if you turn on an AI to like manage the economy, all of a sudden one day you'd wake up and there would be no shirts, no shoes, a ridiculous amount of socks, and tons of corn everywhere. And you'd be like, wait, how do we get to the point?
So AI is a communist?
No, because the AI isn't going to do what you think it's going to do. It would take probably millions upon millions of iterations and simulations to get to the point where it functions properly. And even then, after 10 billion calculations, it for some reason finds let me slow down. Here's why I explain it to people. In the future, we have an AI regulated economy. You wake up, you're like, time to go to work. You look at your phone and it gives you an address. You show up and there's like a jagged piece of metal on top of a box. You pick it up and your phone says, give it to this guy. You walk over to some guy, you give it to him. And then he says, thank you. And he walks away and then boom, $1,000 in your bank account. And you're like, I have no idea what I just did or why. Because the AI would be creating jobs you wouldn't understand or even think of. And then you wouldn't even know what was going on. And that's assuming the AI is actually working in a way to streamline the process. The AI can only do what its essentially base program tells it to do. So it might be like corn is food. Corn is cheap. Corn takes less energy than other forms of energy. Make corn. And then one day you go to the store, there's no beef, there's just a bunch of corn. And you're like, maybe this AI thing isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. The problem then is, if that happens over the period of a few generations, people won't realize, and then you'll end up in a future where there's just only corn and other weird products and people are eating like protein cubes because the AI isn't going to do what you want it to do. And here's the best example. YouTube created an algorithm for finding the best content. They said, what do people like? They love shows that are long, like Game of Thrones. So we need something that has the right keywords in it, that's long form content, and appeals to a wide audience. So they create this algorithm. What happened? People started cranking out videos of Hitler and the Incredible Hulk singing nursery rhymes together with like this weird, crappy CGI because it was generating more views. Those weren't specifically the videos that were the result of the 10-minute algorithm, but it was because of babies. So the YouTube algorithm was like, tons of, we get the largest percentage of views come from this one area. They seem to like these themes, promote these videos. So then people started auto-generating videos, and the ones that worked on YouTube were insane mishmash of garbage nonsense that made no sense. The Hulk in a bikini with a Hitler, but Hitler's actually got boobs, and I'm not kidding, it's a real video. There were thousands upon thousands of them. So the human thought, people like these things, program it in. And then the AI over time started developing a taste for the most insane nonsense.
And then so the humans who were making those videos were gaming the system.
Yep.
So the humans were smarter than the AI and were able to
No. All they knew was this is what was getting traffic.
No, but I'm saying the people who were making those videos with the Hitler with boobs on them and stuff like that, like they were gaming the AI system.
Seriously?
They figured out how to do it.
Go on YouTube and search Finger Family Hitler, and you will see this video. It's a woman's body with a bikini with Hitler's head, with the Incredible Hulk, and he's doing Tai Chi, and it's singing a nursery rhyme that was recorded by some dude in India into like a microphone from the 80s. I mean it, 100%. And this has been a problem for a long time.
A lot of views?
This particular video has like 30 or 40,000, but there was a period.
Still more than it deserves.
There was a period where there were hundreds of millions of these videos, because there was a big problem where there was a trend of videos that were like little kids getting injections and urinating on each other, because that's what was getting traffic. So because of that, that's what YouTube was promoting. People made more and more and more of it, which created a feedback loop. The more they made, the more views it got, the more it refined into a point where insane stuff dominated YouTube and people were watching this stuff. The same thing is true of politics. So social media creates an algorithm saying, show us the things that get the most watch time and have the most keywords. And what happened was intersectional feminism. So I've explained this before, right? If an article about racism gets X views and an article about sexism gets Y views, an article about racism and sexism gets X plus Y views. And in some instances, it gets X, Y views, so multiplication. And so YouTube starts promoting whatever has the most keywords in it. So when someone would write an article being like, Democratic trans women of color fighting with Republican alt-right neo-Nazis is the fight of our generation, it would get ridiculous amount of clicks because the algorithm would be like, look at all these keywords, feed it out to all of these people, and they would see it. That made people go insane. So Facebook was dominated absolutely by police brutality videos because it got so much engagement. Rage, justice, people would share it being like, I must do something. Then we ended up with the past 10 years of intersectionality because BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, Vox, Mike, all realized that's how you would make money. That's what people wanted.
Right.
The people didn't really want that content. They were just being fed it by the algorithms on these social networks. So long story short, we think the AI will be Skynet. Nah, it's just going to scream in your face Nazi 50 billion times.
It's possible that was a machine learning algorithm instead of an artificial intelligence.
Right,
They're
right, I
different.
understand the difference.
So I'd love to get an AI specialist on here someday to go deep into that, like the difference between machine learning and AI.
Right. They're not the same thing, right? So anyway, if you haven't already, please smash that like button and become a member at timcast.com. We're going to have, we might have a vlog episode up tomorrow over at youtube.com/castcastle, because we have two actually, but they're kind of the same because we just spent the weekend grilling. But maybe I'll just put them up anyway because, vlogs are vlogs. And if you guys want to watch it, you can watch it. And then we're going to be filming again. So more stuff's to come. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be going out to the range, I think in about a week. We'll be going to the range for one of the vlogs, and it'll be fun. A lot of gun stuff. So make sure you check that out. Go to timcast.com, become a member. You can now use Stripe, and make sure you go to the store and buy your Sheba to the Moon shirt. It's greatly appreciated. You can follow this show at facebook.com/timcastirl, share our videos, and on Instagram at timcastirl. We're live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., so thanks for hanging out. Do you want to shout anything out, Dave?
Oh, my podcast is a part of the problem, and I will, if you're interested in my run for president, I will be speaking at the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus event in Pittsburgh on May 14th next week. Come out, check us out there. The Mises Caucus, Libertarian Party, that's all.
Hey, yeah. Hit me up, minds.com/Ottman, OTTMAN. Hit me up. Let's do this.
Yo, I'm so ready. I just wish we could have talked more about the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and the Bank of International
Dude,
Settlements.
we could talk about this a lot
let's
more,
go very
man.
deep.
We'll do it.
And also, I think there's a new mug. Is that true? Is the Don't Fight an Alligator Underwater mug?
I believe that is up,
It
actually.
may actually be, in addition to our Shibu Inu to the Moon shirt, there is a
That's
Ian
right.
Crossland.
The Ian Crossland Don't Fight an Alligator Underwater mug is also available.
It's
I didn't know if it was
wonderful.
going to post.
You want to bring them onto land so that you can fight them on your terms. You really don't want to fight an alligator.
This is
I think that's what it comes
great
to.
art, by the way.
Fantastic art. Thank you guys so much.
So-
IanCrossland.net.
For those that aren't familiar, we were talking about not getting dragged into these troll arguments where like someone will argue with you on Twitter, and then as soon as you counter their argument, they'll change the subject, and then Ian just goes, "Yeah, don't fight an alligator underwater." And I was like,
Mind
that was
blown.
very profound.
No, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That is, yes.
Fight 'em on land.
I have gotten dragged into way too many of those arguments.
Yep.
Trying very much to stop.
They'll say something to you where it's like Joe Biden's the greatest, and you'll say, "Well, I personally take issue with Joe Biden's policy on this," and they'll go, "Yeah, well, you're a Nazi, so you are a bigot." That's the bait. It's like you're not arguing anymore. You know, don't get dragged underwater with the alligator. You don't want to do it.
Just tell them you love them and walk away.
Yeah, there you go. That
I
works too.
on Facebook, I usually just say like, because I don't try to insult people. So I'll post something and then someone will start yelling at me because people are nasty, and I'll just be like, I'm sorry, I don't understand why you're so upset right now. And they'll be like, well, I'm just saying, and I'll be like, that's cool, appreciate it. I'm just don't understand
Catch
why
him
you're
off
angry.
guard.
Well, it's like,
High
why are
five
we?
emoji.
I'm not yelling at you. You're not yelling at me. What's going on? Why are you doing it? Anyway.
Yeah. And then me, yes, I'm in the corner. I would also like a mug, but I don't have any catchy sayings yet. So until then, you guys can just follow me on Twitter at Sour Patch Lids.
And never forget, don't fight an alligator underwater. We will see you all tomorrow or maybe Sunday. Tomorrow or Sunday, youtube.com/castcastle. Subscribe to our new vlog channel. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're trying to build like a 40-foot grind rail so that we can do a bunch of silly things on it. And I guess now we have to do stupid stuff like Allison was like, we're going to get a swimming pool and then zip line over it. And I'm like, I guess, because we got to film something. So
Maybe a volleyball net in the pool. I'm into it.
there
Let's
we go.
play.
Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you all next time.